XRP price predictions are everywhere if you've been watching the coin at all. 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, or even $100,000 for each ticket. People who aren't into crypto think those numbers are crazy, but what if I told you that every day lawyers, bankers, CEOs, and financial professionals set those price targets? People who really know how swaps, liquidity, and tokenization work. So today we're going to look at some of the most daring predictions about XRP. We'll talk about the reasoning behind these predictions and discuss how this digital asset could really be in a position to reach numbers that may seem impossible at the moment. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Make sure you see it. This resource could be the most useful thing you get all year. All right, XRP time. Over the years, we've heard a lot of experts give crazy numbers that would break the internet if they ever came true. During the hype cycle of 2021, one of the most well-known predictions was made. Analysts said that if things stayed the same, XRP could hit $25,175 per coin based on global settlement values at that time. Now, after trillions more have been added to the world money supply, that same model says about $50,000 for each coin. Take a moment to process that. If institutions really did decide to use XRP to restart global settlement systems, the numbers would show a value much higher than anyone could imagine. But that's just the start. For instance, take Jake Claver. He's been very open about talking about XRP's role in swaps, which are the craziest and most popular market in finance. We're talking about a number between $400 trillion and $4 quadrillion. It's so big that no one can agree on how big it is, but what Jake says is very important. If you could finally use smart contracts to build a system that clearly shows how these structured goods work, you would need to use a platform that is capable of handling that level of difficulty. With Codius, a platform for smart contracts that connects to XRP for payment, Ripple has just that. Think about that. A market worth hundreds of trillions of dollars can now be accessed on the chain, with XRP being used to settle transactions. Because of this, Jake can easily make bold estimates of $10,000 to $50,000 per XRP in the next 5 years. When you hear that, you know where it came from. It's based on how much worth Ripple is trying to get. And we can't forget the flip the switch story that has been going around for a long time. Here's how the idea works. Ripple already has more than 300 agreements with banks, businesses, and states. At some point, all of them start using XRP for real payment volume all at once, either because they planned it that way or because they had no other choice. Utility usage skyrockets overnight. At that point, the amount of tokens that could be used for on-demand funding would run out quickly, and the price per coin would have to rise a lot to make room for the flows of global settlements. That's when you can hear numbers like $25,000 or more the next day. That may seem like a perfect situation, but think about how small the real supply is on markets at the moment. Analysts say that there could be only 1 to 3 billion XRP left to buy in total on all markets. That's not even 5% of the total amount. So what will happen when those things are no longer available? When real payment flows are at stake, what happens when banks, companies, and institutions are all fighting for the same small group of tokens? That's when the price movement that you think is impossible starts to look reasonable. Graham, the CEO of RX, has another important viewpoint. He's an authority, but not just any random one. He works to help institutional blockchain usage grow. What is his outlook? A move onto XRP worth $30 to $50 trillion in just 2 years. In what way? By using tokenized treasuries, money market funds, and eventually getting rid of traditional methods like DTCC and Euroclear. And keep in mind that this is only a small part of the 1.4 quadrillion world derivatives and assets market. Ripple doesn't need the whole thing. It doesn't even need 50%. Just a small amount would make XRP go to a place that most people would think is impossible. And while we're on the subject of world systems, let's discuss how Ripple's special access works. For the last 13 years, Ripple has been in meetings with the world's biggest banks, central bankers, and lawmakers. Banks like Citibank, JP Morgan, Bank of America, and a lot of others. Very few crypto businesses have ever been allowed in those rooms, but Ripple has been there all the time. If these organizations believe in Ripple's tech and see the XRP record as a safe and scalable system, what will happen when the next big wave of value starts to move on-chain? Where is it going to end up? Check out the competition. Ethereum has high fees and is very busy. Ripple has built up a lot of trust with institutions, which most layer 2s haven't done yet. This is why XRP, HBAR, and maybe a few others are usually the only options for the global settlements shortlist. But XRP has a special quality. Years of regulatory fights that, somewhat strangely, may have made it more legitimate. A lot of people even think that Ripple's court fight with the SEC was not just a fight, but a play meant to create global independence. If the US government seemed to be targeting Ripple, it made the technology look less like an American asset and more like something that could be used anywhere in the world. The idea doesn't matter. The result is clear. Ripple has made it through, and now they're stronger than before. When you zoom out, everything starts to fit together. Assets being turned into tokens, the need for immediate settlement, the quadrillions in derivatives, how exchanges have almost no liquid XRP left, and how big banks are already trying or using Ripple's technology. When you put that together, the price goals that sounded crazy at first don't seem so crazy anymore. Let's go ahead and look at the next set of statements that will make XRP worth six figures. Yes, there are real discussions about what it would cost per token when it is based on the price of things with limited availability and how quickly people around the world start using it. The price could be $100,000 or more per token. Let's look at the very optimistic $100,000 XRP price target numbers that astonish everyone. How could anyone really say that one ticket could be worth that much? The answer has to do with the availability of goods, the need for global funding, and making real-world assets into digital tokens. The main point is this. XRP is limited to 100 billion tokens, and only 50 billion are in use right now. Now look at the difference with the trillions of dollars that are moved around the world. If big companies start using XRP as collateral for tokenized treasuries, securities, real estate, or swaps, demand will go through the roof and the supply will stay the same. To balance the situation, the price has to go up. That's the way to get mind-blowing values. Some specialists think that in the future, governments and companies will use the XRP system to turn things like bonds, stocks, commodities, and even money into tokens. If that happens, XRP will not only be a way to send money between countries, but it will also be a way to store value for assets that are tokens. That's where people talk about numbers like $50,000 to $100,000 per XRP. If there are trillions of dollars worth of tokenized assets just sitting on the record, a supply-demand squeeze will happen. When you can't get to your supplies, think about what that means. XRP is held by millions of everyday buyers at this time. But when banks, hedge funds, and sovereign wealth funds start buying, keeping, and using XRP to pay for things, there won't be any left because the supply will have shrunk to zero. If there are only a few billion tokens left on platforms, and there are trillions of dollars worth of tokens that need to be settled, then each XRP has to represent a lot more value in order for the system to work. This is why the idea of a cash pool is so important. Each coin must be worth more when there are fewer of them available. Analysts often say that if the liquid quantity was reduced to only a few billion tokens, each XRP would need to cost tens of thousands of dollars just to keep the global financial system running. That's the math that explains the amazing numbers. Let's go over the flip the switch situation one more time, but this time with the $100,000 in mind. Picture Ripple as a company that has already partnered with hundreds of central banks, money transfer companies, and other financial institutions. If a lot of important people in the industry choose to start using XRP for settlements on the same day or within the same week, what will happen? It would not happen slowly. It would be a step function, and trillions of dollars in flow would quickly hit a very small amount of money that is available to trade right away. This is why a lot of people who know about XRP think that if it ever does have a big change in price, it will happen quickly, not slowly. It will happen while you're sleeping. This is closely related to another strong claim that XRP should be a global reserve currency. Ripple even said out loud at one point that XRP was designed to be the next reserve currency. For that to happen, the ticket would need to be very valuable and trusted by everyone around the world. XRP taking the place of the dollar, euro, or yen is not a sure thing. In other words, it could act as a neutral payment layer beneath them, connecting all fiat currencies and tokenized assets. A high valuation would be needed just for that job. Let's take a break and look at what kind of market cap is needed for that type of value. If XRP had a value of $100,000 per coin, the market would value it at $5 quadrillion, assuming there are 50 billion coins in circulation. It may seem impossible until you remember that the futures market is thought to be worth up to 1.4 quadrillion. And the overall wealth around the world, including land, houses, stocks, bonds, goods, and other valuables. In that case, $5 quadrillion isn't enough to buy it all. It's taking in a small amount while it works as collateral for a payment. People who don't believe it's possible say that no single ledger could carry the entire world system, and they might be right. But supporters say that XRP doesn't need to do everything. Even if XRP only does 5% to 10% of the world's settlement and tokenization, it would still cost at least tens of thousands of dollars per token. People who know how settlements work don't just ignore the $100,000 case, and that's why. Now we will look at the institutional part. Ripple has already done work with companies such as Bank of America, Santander, and Citi. They have worked together with payment businesses in the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. They have talked to central banks about digital currencies. In crypto, that kind is not usually available. This means that XRP isn't starting from scratch in its quest to win acceptance. It's in the room already added to the tools used for testing, trusted already. And this is where law starts to matter. Ripple's long fight with the SEC may turn out to be very beneficial for the company, even though it hurts them in the short run. Ripple has more definition than almost any other token because a judge has already said that XRP secondary sales are not securities. Now that things are clear, U.S. banks and institutions can use XRP without worrying about sudden changes in legal consequences. At the same time, Ripple is quickly starting to use and launch new products in Asia, the Middle East, and places like them. The key to success is regulatory certainty. As soon as institutions are allowed to go ahead, there is a lot of desire. If many countries agree to use XRP for cross-border settlement, the domino effect could lead to very fast acceptance. That's when it starts to seem like the higher price expectations are based on reality instead of just wishful thinking. Now think about macroeconomics. If fiat currencies lose a lot of value, which many experts think will happen because of printing money and taking on more debt, the world will need neutral assets that will keep their value. Gold will be better off. Bitcoin will be better off. But XRP could get even more help because it has a built-in usefulness. Agreement. If businesses need something that protects them from the risks of fiat currency and also gives them real-time access to cross-border liquidity, XRP is the answer. It's not common in business to have a dual use case. Tokenized funds also need to be talked about. In the last year, putting U.S. bonds on chain has become a huge trend. Blockchain-based systems are receiving billions of dollars from money market funds. If XRP becomes a top way to settle tokenized bonds and stocks, there will be another huge wave of demand from institutions. U.S. Treasury securities are very important to world finance. A reliable, scalable, neutral asset would be needed to settle them on-chain. That's exactly where XRP belongs. So when experts give numbers like $100,000, they aren't saying it will happen the next day. They're saying that XRP could be worth that much if it means that institutions use neutral settlement layers in a world where trillions of tokenized assets move through blockchains and there isn't much liquidity. It's about pipes, not hype. Also remember that most of these numbers are lower than what the experts say. They will cost anywhere from $5 to $100 in 2030. It still takes trillions in market value, even with those modest estimates. But what do you do if real adoption is better than you thought it would be? What happens when usefulness suddenly increases and liquidity disappears from exchanges? That's when the good things start to happen. At the same time, don't think that XRP will be the only one in the game. As others have pointed out, XRP, XLM, HBAR, QNT, ADA, and XTC will probably all be linked together in order to support the banking system of the future. But XRP's early start, partnerships, and design for institutional settlement put it in a unique situation. If there is one coin that becomes XRP, it has the best argument for being that coin. And that is why so many people still think XRP is worth a lot less than it should be, even after years of waiting. When you think about the quadrillions in world value, a 100 billion token supply limit, and Ripple's access to institutions, the math shows that there are numbers that are hard to understand. Now let's move on, because the next part of this puzzle is maybe the most interesting. How quick changes in institutions and a lack of money could cause really dumb price changes up to amounts that no one thought would be possible in a very short amount of time. When you look closely at liquidity, it becomes even easier to see why XRP prices will change very fast. Currently, experts say that fewer than 5 billion XRP can be traded on exchanges. That's less than 5% of the total amount of 100 billion. The rest is being held long-term in institutional custody or in Ripple's trust. So what happens when schools start to compete for the same small group? The math becomes very complicated. Let's say that a central bank, several big hedge funds, and a few multinational companies all decided to allocate at the same time. We don't need billions of those. The settlement needs are in the trillions. Each coin must stand for a lot more value because there are only a few billion coins. Prices change quickly and dramatically because they have to. This is where you hear phrases like XRP will have to reprice overnight. It's an idea with basis. It's a big cash squeeze. XRP doesn't slowly rise when there is a quick increase in demand like a normal stock would. It jumps to the right place to help the flow. This is the reason why the flip the switch moment is such a strong concept. It doesn't have to be built, it's already there. The deals have already been signed, the technology has already been shown to work. It only needs to be scaled up from millions to trillions of uses, and the price system will take care of everything else. Another very important factor is how quickly you can settle. It takes 3 to 5 seconds for XRP trades to go through. In contrast, in today's banking system, cross-border transfers can take days. Now picture a system that can settle in seconds that has tokenized US government bonds, commodities, and real estate moving through it. The speed of money increases. When things start to move quickly, there's also a greater need for collateral. XRP is the payment. This is directly related to why a lot of professionals think XRP could turn into a globally neutral layer for settling things, not a substitute for the euro or the dollar, but the link connecting them. Look at it like this. When the web was created, there was no need for a single language to take the place of English, Spanish, Chinese, or any other language. TCP/IP was needed to connect them all. XRP is a very important technology for transferring value like TCP/IP is for the internet, not taking sides, quick and reliable. And this isn't just an idea. Ripple has been doing work with businesses and states for more than 10 years. They have relationships on every continent. They've been a part of the planning for digital currency test programs at central banks. They have already tried to come to a deal with some of the world's biggest banks. If you think that history can help us understand what will happen next, Ripple's past gives us a hint. XRP has mostly moved past the fight for regulatory certainty. XRP is different from a lot of other tokens that still don't have a clear answer about whether or not their secondary sales are stocks because there has already been a ruling on XRP's behalf. This makes it much easier for banks and funds to look into real usage. In finance, it's very important to know what the rules are. Without it, organizations are unable to take action. They are able to move quickly with it. Now, add macroeconomics to the conversation. The US's debt is higher than ever. Around the world, people are putting pressure on fiat currencies. Inflation slowly decreases the amount of things people can buy with their money. In that setting, harmless digital things that are useful in the real world are seen as a way to stay alive as well as an investment. Gold will do what it needs to do. Bitcoin will do what it needs to do. But XRP has a special payment use case that means it could do something neither of them can. And the time is very interesting. In the last 2 years, the tokenization of real-world assets has become a thing that people do instead of just a thing that people talk about. BlackRock is at the forefront of trials with tokenized money market funds. Tokenized bonds are being tested by big banks. Right now, the infrastructure is being built for tokenized assets worth trillions of dollars. XRP is one of the best choices when those assets need a way to settle transactions. Now, think about scale one more time. If only 5% of world financial value went through XRP, the tokens could be worth tens of thousands each, not due to hype, but because of numbers. The price must be higher to support a bigger volume. This is why some people say that XRP is not just another altcoin. It's meant to support the backbone of world finance. It was never meant to be a meme coin or a risky bet. From the very beginning, it was designed to fix liquidity and payment issues on a large scale. Now that everything is ready, things are starting to come together. Let's go back to the most ridiculous guesses, which were $50,000, $100,000, and more. Is it really possible for XRP to hit those numbers? If Ripple's plan for replacing or improving the world settlement system works out, then yes. If the XRP ledger gets swaps, tokenized assets, and cross-border flows worth trillions, then yes. Yes, if there is a lot more desire than supply on exchanges, then yes. Those figures aren't just possible, they might be needed. Of course, no one can predict the exact route or when it will happen. It is possible that XRP will first hit $10,
then $50, and finally $100. But as the jumps get steeper, acceptance becomes more widespread. Keep in mind that a lack of wealth doesn't happen in a straight line. They move in big jumps. If trillions in volume are after billions in supply, the numbers will be reset fast.
And that is why so many people who have held on to their investments for a long time are still sure they will do well. They know what's coming. Ripple has had to fight through regulation and survive bear markets, and they've seen Ripple do these things and also build ties with the most important people in finance.